and welcome to this week's live. We're going to be speaking a bit about the Phoenix Group Coaching Program, which is launching this week. I'm going to go over the format of the program and also what we cover in the program, as well as the driving mechanisms of long COVID for anyone who's kind of new to the platform. So to start with, the group coaching is a 2-month program, and we do calls every week, usually towards the end of the week at a time that suits everyone, and it's a group call. So everyone has a chance to speak and ask questions. And then I do a follow-up email with any kind of links or further information that people want to find out about. And I think what's really valuable about the group coaching and why I think it's actually the best of the different coaching options is because people receive the feedback from others in the group. So, if someone has a infrared sauna recommendation, or there's a discount on some kind of supplement, everyone really shares this information with each other, which is really helpful. And beyond just that practical aspect of it, there's also the aspect of feeling like a sense of community in this journey, because a lot of times people come to the group coaching program with this story of, I've been suffering with this condition for 1, 2, up to 3 years, and people don't really understand. My family don't understand, friends don't understand. I'm constantly tired. I'm constantly, have brain fog. Some people cannot drive anymore or do the same activities, and it can be very isolating. So I think the group also has this sense of community spirit where you feel seen and you feel supported by people who are going through the same experience. So there is also that aspect of it, which I think is really positive. Um, and then, the other, one other aspect of the coaching that's different to the one-on-one even is that we have an appearance of the Dr. Hyder's medical team during the second week, where we talk about labs and we talk about the prescription protocol, and we talk about supplements. And then you have a chance to directly ask one of the doctors on the team in real time any questions that you have about the process of getting labs, of getting different types of functional medicine tests, and our basic lab panel. So this is also a great opportunity, and you can kind of remain in contact with them throughout the program. Then either on Push Health, which is the telemedicine platform, or sometimes via email, or via me. So that's also a great resource. So just to cover, I'm going to show this presentation, which talks about the driving mechanisms really of long COVID. So, as I'm sure many of you know, homeostasis is kind of when the body is just in balance and it's balancing all of these different, internal and external factors to kind of create a state of health. Um, and dyshomeostasis is when we reach the disease state because there is some kind of imbalance. So, when it comes to long COVID, there are quite a few driving mechanisms. One that, well, here are all the driving mechanisms that you can see, but I'm going to go through them one at a time and just kind of give some insights as to what we cover in the coaching program. So immune dysregulation is one really common one, and this is the viral persistence that we talk about and viral replication. But this also comes hand in hand with the reactivation of underlying pathogens. So things like herpes and EBV and any other virus that you might have had for a long time and known you've had, or in some cases, people don't know they've had EBV or even Lyme disease, for example. And what happens when the immune system becomes repressed is that these become reactivated. So then your body is dealing with the persistent, the viral replication of COVID itself, and also a reactivated herpes infection or EBV and these other things. So it really puts a strain on the immune system, and I mean everything that we do really helps to support the immune system because, again, it's just, going back to the homeostasis. It's more about removing things to get out of the body's way of healing. That's a really important approach when it comes to supporting the immune system. And of course, there are all the supplements that we can take, and there are a lot of things that we can do lifestyle wise to support the immune system, which we talk about in the program, like exposing yourself to sun, things like hot and cold exposure, things like grounding, stress regulation. But all of these things ultimately are just designed to remove the barriers to allow your body to do its job naturally. Here is the cytokine panel. Incel, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Incel DX, which do a specific cytokine panel that's associated with long COVID and vaccine injury. So it's possible to get this test and find out, what is going on in your body. And some people do opt for this, although I have to say that, with a lot of these tests, I think if you are going to spend some money on doing testing and precise testing and functional medicine testing, things like the GI stool map, which I'm going to speak about later, are more useful because they're just more targeted. If you just find out that your immune system is dysregulated, okay, great, but you kind of already knew that because you have long COVID. So it's not so precise in the sense of having a GI stool map where you find out that, okay, there's this one bacteria that's really high and there's one that's really low, or, oh, I have candida or I have a parasite. This is something very tangible and concrete where we can just target it with a certain approach. Finding out that there's a generalized issue is sometimes not that useful. I mean, if you're going to pay hundreds of dollars to find that out, it's more useful to spend the money on other things. But then that being said, I mean, there are benefits to that. And these are the kinds of questions that we weigh up in the group. We talk about which kind of functional testing which would best suit you, and if it even makes sense to do functional testing, and which supplements to take, in the case of each of these driving mechanisms. So the microbiome, this is what I was speaking about, and this is a sample of a GI stool map. You can see in this one, there's high salmonella, there's adenovirus, there's H. pylori, one type of H. pylori, there's some E. coli. This is just one page of the GI stool map, and there are many pages, and this is really useful to do because then we can just be more targeted, as I said. And microbiome dysbiosis is a common symptom of long COVID. And often what we find is that people who have microbiome issues, they usually previously had some kind of issue. Maybe they've been suffering from an autoimmune condition, or they've had Crohn's, or they've had IBS, or they've just had general digestion issues. And then long COVID was sort of the final straw that pushed things over the edge. So definitely going back to, um, to basics and doing these kinds of tests, because one thing that I often say, to people in the group is that even when you're buying a probiotic, for example, most probiotics contain lactobacillus and bifido, maybe, but there are so many different bacterial species in the gut that your gut might be low on, and it might be okay on lactobacillus, let's say. So taking just a lactobacilli probiotic will actually be doing nothing really for you, because you're just replacing something that already exists in adequate numbers. So yeah, that's why GI stool map can be quite helpful. And usually with any kinds of gut health issues, we use this 5R approach, which is remove, replace, repair, re-inoculate, and rebalance. So removing is, of course, if we have candida, it's doing some kind of candida protocol. Replacing is what I spoke about in terms of finding out which healthy and good bacteria are low and which are high, and then doing um, a very targeted micro probiotic regime. And replace can even be something like taking betaine HCl, for example. So one really common reason why people are predisposed for these kinds of gut infections, and intrusions, let's say by Candida and H. pylori, is due to low stomach acid. So taking something like betaine HCl, which is a hydrochloric acid supplement, will create a very acidic environment in the stomach, which is actually what we want, even though that might be contrary to some of the information you've heard about acid reflux and these kind of things. But a high stomach acid of between 1.5 and 3 is really what we're looking for in the stomach, and that really helps to ward away these kinds of pathogens. So replacing will sometimes involve that, and then repair and inoculate. So again, this repairing things like bone broth, gelatin, collagen, anything that kind of aloe, slippery elm, marshmallow root, all of these things are really great for repairing the lining of the gut, because often, the damaged gut lining is what creates leaky gut, and then that's what leads to things like food intolerances and allergies, and eventually an impaired immune system, because your immune system is just overburdened by all of this maldigested food. So yeah, re-inoculate, repair, and then rebalance. So this is more focused on lifestyle and the things that maybe led you to the point of having gut health issues. So this is things like stress, especially, is a huge one. Maybe people who eat standing up or eat in the car, or maybe don't actually really have meal times, they just snack throughout the day. Um, there's a lot of lifestyle. Lack of sleep is a huge one, because our microbiome has its own circadian rhythm, and we want to kind of match our circadian rhythm to the microbiome circadian rhythm. So these are really the lifestyle factors that we need to maintain this state that we've now created with the gut. And one common thing that I kind of hear people say, when it comes to gut health, is people say, oh, if I take chlorella, will it help with my gut? Or if I take this probiotic, will it be good? If I do this, and, the answer is always yes, it will help if that's targeting what's wrong with the gut. And we're not going to know what's wrong unless you do a GI stool map. However, it is possible to just follow, some really basic gut health tips, and things that I said in terms of matching the microbiome, the circadian rhythm with the microbiome circadian rhythm, exposing ourselves to light, removing things that trigger the gut lining, like herbicides and pesticides and unfiltered water and pharmaceuticals and all of these kind of things. So we can do the best for the gut that we can, to support it, and then use something like a GI stool map as a last resort if nothing works. And usually a lot of people improve, just with these kind of interventions. So digestive bitters, yeah, this is a great, and this brand is actually a great brand to help, as I spoke about, kind of increasing digestive juices, enzymes, and also helping to intensify the stomach acid, to kind of be a good trigger on the digestive cascade. So another driving mechanism is autoimmunity and immune priming. So this commonly happens in people who actually have autoimmune disease. A lot of people have autoimmune disease and then are really affected by long COVID, of course, because um, it's an immune-based condition. So often going back to kind of treat the autoimmune disease from a holistic point of view, which often people never really did. They might have not come across a functional medicine doctor, or they might not have done any diet or lifestyle interventions to treat their autoimmune disease. So this is something that we speak about, and the AIP protocol is a good one in terms of food. And here is kind of the basic food list: the foods to avoid and the foods to include. And yeah, the autoimmune diet is really an elimination diet to find out what are your main food triggers. And each week you eliminate a different group. So one week might be grains, one week might be like nightshades, one could be spices, beans and legumes, nuts and seeds. and then you're on the protocol for 1 to 3 months, and then you do a reintroduction protocol. So, and in doing this, you should be able to identify which are your kind of main food triggers, and hopefully be doing the lifestyle things in the meantime that we spoke about to really support the gut health. So this is something really for for autoimmunity, and black seed oil is a great um, supplement when it comes to autoimmunity to support that. So every with every driving mechanism and with every recommendation, there are, of course, supplements, botanicals, herbs, adaptogens that can really help to support the journey. So that's something that we also speak about in the protocol, in the 2 month coaching program. So microclotting, this is something really common, again, in the case of long COVID, and now we have um, the microscopy test available, where people can really see, where they look at your blood with a microscope. So then the size of the clots is going to be visible, and the extent of the clotting. It's a much more precise test than just the D-dimer and fibrinogen on a blood panel, which many of you might have done. And then, of course, there are the supplements, which is usually the natokinase and serapeptase, which help with microclotting. And there's also a pharmaceutical protocol for microclotting in the case that people have really extensive microclots. So the last one, dysfunctional neurological signaling, or this is otherwise known as dysautonomia, or also nervous system dysregulation. This is another one that's quite, um, difficult to test for and pinpoint because there's no specific test for it. And it's also more difficult to treat because there's no specific supplement, and um, there's no really one thing. It's kind of a constellation of things that affects the nervous system. One way that you can kind of determine what state your nervous system is in is with heart rate variability testing. So here in this red graph, you can see that this person has zero point 0.8, 0.79, and then 0.73. So there's an irregular number between the heartbeats, which is actually indicative of a healthy state and a relaxed nervous system. And even though it seems maybe counterintuitive, having a more metronomic heartbeat is actually considered more of a stressed state, a sympathetic state versus a parasympathetic, which is what we're aiming for. So some of devices such as the Aura Ring, and also um, it's one called Loop. It's kind of a bracelet that measures heart rate variability. So these are good because they monitor your heart rate variability for 24 hours. It's also possible to wear a chest strap, but one thing that was brought to my attention in the group coaching was that some people found these, like, I think it was a finger scan or something, an app that scans your finger on your phone and tests for heart rate variability. And these are just not accurate because you really need to measure your heart rate over many days to get so that your baseline is understood. So it's only when we kind of understand your baseline heart rate during sleep, during rest, during activity, that we can really derive any interesting and useful information about what would constitute a good, like a sympathetic and parasympathetic state when it comes to heart rate, because everyone's are quite different. So we have to establish your baseline before deriving any information from that. So this is something we speak about in the group also. And this has kind of, the nervous system aspect has become more of a central point, I think, of the long COVID group, because a lot of people suffer from nervous system dysregulation, not only as a symptom of long COVID, but also, having long COVID is stressful in and of itself because of the isolation, because of the expense of doing all of these treatments. Maybe you can't work, there are many things. So it's really important to kind of get the nervous system under control with all of these interventions that we speak about, like the hot and cold exposure, the meditation, the breath work, vagal nerve stimulator. There are lots of different things that we encourage people to do to regulate the nervous system. And yeah, and so supplementation. So turmeric is really great for neuroinflammation. And then there's also adaptogenic herbs, such as ashwagandha or some adaptogenic mushrooms that are really great for adrenal fatigue and other types of HPA axis dysfunction, or which is often kind of what led people to being predisposed for long COVID also. So if anyone wants to book a discovery call with me, I can share my Calendly link if you send me an email, or if you comment in on Facebook or anywhere that you're watching this. If you comment, I can reply and I can send you the link to book a discovery call for the group coaching. And in the call, we will discuss your background and your symptoms and whether or not you'd be a good fit for the program. And I can just give you any, feedback, and also answer any specific questions that you have about the group. Um, you can also find out more about and watch some videos and watch testimonials at this website. So coach.mygotodoc.com/group. It's just written there at the bottom of the page. So if you want to kind of look at the landing page and see what else is there. Um, and then lastly, my email, michelle@mygotodoc.com. If you email me there, I can also send you the link to set up the discovery call, but you can also email with any questions that you have about the program in general. So it's michelle@mygotodoc.com. So I'm going to answer any questions now. So what makes you different from the rest of health coaches? I've worked with some coaches in the past and would like to know how unique the program is. Um, well, I guess so. It's hard to answer this question because I'm not sure which coaches you worked with before and on what subjects. But of course, this program is unique in that it's unique to long COVID recovery. So that's the thing that we're really specialized in. And what makes it unique is that I'm working alongside the medical team, and also building off all of the work that Dr. Hyder has done over the years on long COVID. He's seen so many different patients, and he's been researching the subject for um, years now. And I think it's quite rare that you can do a program that's this affordable. This is definitely our most affordable program, and essentially have access to a whole team of doctors, and also, Dr. Hyder indirectly through all the work that he's done on this. A lot of times when people hire a health coach or a nutritionist, they're kind of hiring an individual that um, might have amazing credentials and have worked with many people, but they're not working in a whole team of professionals, essentially, who've been building something like this, over a couple of years. So I think that makes it different, as well as, of course, it being quite niche. It's not a generalized health program; it's quite specific to long COVID recovery. Okay, someone said that she's been part of the group and it's received a wealth of valuable information and has repeated the class. So great. Thanks a lot um, for who commented this. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, we've had quite a few people who've repeated the program because it's quite a lot of information to take in at one time. And even people who've repeated the course many times actually say that they learn something new every time, because it's hard to take in all the information that's offered, and there's a lot of resources that are kind of recommended even outside of that. So even if you take it many times, there are always new things to learn. I've been trying a lot of health diets, and I still feel bloated and unhappy? Is your approach holistic? So I'm not sure if you saw the part about the gut health, but if you didn't, you could maybe scroll back in the video and see the section where I talked about the 5 R's: the replace, um, the reinoculate, repair, um, restore, rebalance. So there's kind of a general idea with gut health that you want to eliminate pathogens and then restore the colonies of good bacteria, and repair the gut lining, and then kind of maintain that state of the gut. Um, so usually bloating is a result, of course, of some kind of inflammation, and this can be something like a food intolerance, or it can be a loss of integrity of the gut lining. It can be something specifically that's, an additive that's triggering you. There are so many different things. So it's important to kind of go through these 5 steps and just try to, um, yeah, create more clear data points, I would say, to understand where, like what it is specifically that's making you bloated. Is it something innate to you? Is it something you're eating? Is it something in the environment, like always eating when you're stressed, eating in the car, standing up, eating at the wrong times? There is a lot to think about when it comes to this, but we focus a lot on gut health in the program just because it is such a huge, I mean, it's something that a lot of people struggle with, and also it's a huge aspect of the immune system. I mean, we often think of the gut as the first kind of line of defense in the immune system. And there's also, of course, a gut brain connection. And since a lot of people struggle with neurological issues, the gut health also has a large part to play in things like brain fog and fatigue and focus. So it is something that we focus on quite a lot in the program. Um, so someone spoke about a bioenergetic test that they did. I'm not specific. I'm not familiar, no, with the practitioner that this person did the test with. Is that similar to the test that you were talking about? So no, I didn't mention any bioenergetic test in this. We spoke about the different functional medicine tests that are, specific to long COVID. So there is a basic lab panel that we do to check for nutrient deficiencies and microclotting, things like that. And then, of course, you can do more of the functional medicine labs. So those are things like the GI stool map, or you can do things like hair mineral analysis or heavy metal testing. And then there is, of course, the InCell DX, the cytokine panel test, and there's also the microscopy test, which is for microclotting. So those are really the main tests. But of course, there are so many tests that everyone can do, and I think that it can be quite overwhelming because it can feel a bit like, and this is something that I repeat a lot actually in the program. So it can feel like your health is behind some test that you're going to do, and it's going to unlock some information that's going to be kind of the panacea. And it can be that that does happen, but very often it's not the case. It might just give you one piece in the puzzle. So often people get quite frustrated and with this because they're just spending so much money on lots of different tests, thinking that the panacea or this one test will unlock the thing that will just make everything go away. And I think that it's much better to kind of focus the energy on all of these quite basic but impactful diet and lifestyle and supplement changes. And then once you've been really committed to these things, the sleep environment, the exposing yourself to the light, the hot and cold exposure, the circadian rhythm, the earthing, the grounding, the diet, the gut health, the nervous system regulation. Like once you've committed to all of these things that we cover for, ideally 3 months is really the minimum amount of time that we want to really commit to protocols to see if that we're actually improving. So even by the end of the program, I mean, it's great if you start seeing changes, but not to give up on it, after the program, because we really should commit to things for 3 months. And then, really, only after that point, once you've made all these changes, then you can be more precise and targeted with these more functional medicine tests. And that also saves people quite a lot of money, because you could find out that, just tweaking a few things could actually make a lot of your, let's say, gut health symptoms go away. So that's something important to keep in mind. I think, yeah, I think that's it with the questions. So, um, if anyone would like to find out more about the course, they can scan the code, which is on the screen. But you can also go to the website, and you can also send me an email at michelle@mygotodoc.com to set up a discovery call. So I hope to see some of you on the program, and thank you very much for listening. Bye bye.